A fresh front in the global trade conflict opened this week as Mexico's Senate approved a sweeping set of tariff increases, with duties now ranging up to 50% on imports from countries that don't have free trade agreements with Mexico. The move, which takes effect in 2026, targets a broad range of products from India, China, and several other Asian economies, and comes amid mounting protectionist pressures in global markets. Analysts say this shift may reshape supply chains and hit certain industries particularly hard. On December 10th, Mexico's Senate passed a bill raising import tariffs on hundreds of products from China, India, South Korea, Thailand, Indonesia, and other non-FTA countries. The legislation was approved with 76 votes in favour, 5 against and 35 abstentions, and builds on an earlier lower house vote. Under the new rules, some categories will face up to 50% duty, especially passenger vehicles and certain finished goods. Most affected products will see tariffs of around 35% or less. The changes cover more than 1,400 product lines, including autos, auto parts, steel, textiles, plastics, and footwear. The tariff regime will start in January 2026, giving exporters and importers time to adjust. Mexico's government says the tariffs are necessary to protect domestic industry and jobs. President Claudia Sheinbaum's administration argues that higher import duties will help local manufacturers compete and reduce reliance on foreign goods, particularly as cheaper imports surged from Asia. Officials also see the move as a way to generate additional public revenue, estimated at about $3.73 billion next year, and to narrow the country's fiscal deficit. Some analysts link the strategy to pressure from the United States, ahead of a review of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA. China and other affected trading partners have criticized the decision. Beijing's Commerce Ministry warned that unilateral tariff hikes risk harming trade relations and could lead to countermeasures. Automotive industry, biggest pain point. The automotive sector is expected to be one of the most severely impacted elements of this tariff overhaul. Tariffs on imported passenger vehicles will rise to 50%, up from 20%. This increase will affect roughly $1 billion in Indian exports to Mexico, including vehicles from major producers such as Volkswagen, Hyundai, Nissan, and Maruti Suzuki. Indian automakers and industry bodies had lobbied against the hike, warning that the sharp increase could undermine export competitiveness and force manufacturers to rethink supply strategies tied to the Mexican market. Mexico is a key destination for Asian automobiles and parts, and the rise in duties may reduce Mexico's appeal as a manufacturing and distribution hub for export-oriented car producers. Industrial goods and textiles. Beyond cars, industrial inputs and manufactured goods face higher duties. Auto parts and components. Steel and metals. Textiles and apparel. Plastics and footwear. These tariff increases threaten to raise production costs for Mexican manufacturers that rely on imported inputs, potentially leading to higher prices downstream for consumers and exporters alike. Supply chain and manufacturing costs. Tariffs at these levels can have ripple effects. Higher input costs for Mexican assembly plants. Reduced competitiveness for Asian exporters. Shift in investment strategies as tariff costs are factored into long-term planning. Business groups within Mexico have objected, saying tariffs could burden domestic industries that depend on imported components, while consumers may face rising costs for finished goods. Mexico's action follows a broader pattern of increased protectionism in global trade. Earlier in 2025, the United States imposed steep tariffs on various trading partners, including China and India, citing trade imbalances and strategic concerns, a trend that pressured other countries to rethink their tariff policies. This new Mexican tariff regime is seen as part of that shifting landscape, with countries balancing internal economic priorities against international trade commitments. Exporters in India, China, and other Asian economies are now assessing the full impact of Mexico's tariff increases. Options include reconfiguring supply chains to reduce exposure, negotiating bilateral trade adjustments, pushing for diplomatic engagement or trade dialogue. Governments and industry groups will be watching closely as details of the tariffs are implemented in 2026, and as negotiations around the USMCA and global trade disputes evolve. In a period of rising trade tensions, these tariff moves signal a more assertive stance by Mexico on trade policy, one that could influence global market dynamics in the years ahead.